All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Hopefully you all got food. If you didn't get food, make sure you get some, because Josh is amazing at what he does. Josh recently provided food for my daughter's volleyball team, and so they're all excited to go to his restaurant. They were very disappointed to learn it didn't exist. But who knows what will happen and what he can talk Katie into. Thank you guys for being here. If you didn't fill this out, feel free to do that while I'm introducing myself. My name is Mark Gomez. I actually went to college with Josh and Katie. I was in Jason Jans's youth group way back in the day. So we go way back.
Sorry, we need to pray for Mark.
Yeah. Yes, let me tell you this story. But by way of background, that's kind of where I grew up. Okay, I grew up in independent fundamental baptism, deep Christian nationalism, and was really like I went to all the worldview classes. I did all those curricula, and was a solid red right-wing Republican all throughout my formative years. Over the last several years, a lot has happened. One, I preached through the prophets. That'll mess you up. Preached through Matthew, and that made it even worse. And our family, as we were preaching through Matthew, thinking about the Sermon on the Mount, thinking about the Lord's Prayer, and what does it mean for God's kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven, and for us to participate in that, we decided to do foster care. And getting into the system, seeing the government at work, in the lives of vulnerable people who have experienced deep brokenness and trauma, did a lot for our theology, for the way we approach just our philosophy of life and flourishing, and did a lot for the way we approach politics. So I don't come here claiming to be unbiased. If you see somebody on some platform telling you that they are giving you their unbiased opinion, they are not being honest with you. We all have biases, and the best we can do is acknowledge our biases and try to be around people who are different than us that we can talk to and interact with and understand where people are coming from. Okay, so here are my biases. I am unaffiliated. I'm an unregistered voter. If I were to register, I would be a Democrat. In Colorado, it doesn't really matter because you can vote in whatever primary you want, right? And with ranked choice voting, it might get even worse. But I would likely be a Democrat. In fact, I would be a very leftist Democrat if I were part of a party. Okay, my bias is that that we don't truly have a leftist party to be a part of. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. I also have experienced conservatism. I understand the arguments because I used to make them, and I have a lot of friends and family that are still making those arguments to me and are just shocked at what I've become. So that's where I'm coming from. Those are like cards on the table. Here's who I am. I don't know why Katie asked me. Honestly, I'm not like a politician, or I like to do research. I like to think deeply about things. In elections past, I used to like post on Facebook and say, let's talk about Amendment G and like foster this conversation, and eventually it would devolve into chaos. But there was some good that came out of it, and some people were like, oh, I didn't even know about this. So 8 years ago, with Providence, we did a ballot forum like this. 4 years ago, our church did it. And so I'm glad to do it this year, and I'm excited. My goal here is not to tell you how to vote. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I'm going to try to help you understand each initiative as best as we can, right? Because some of them are confusing. And honestly, if you just open up your ballot and read the one little paragraph, it's not enough. It's not enough for you to truly get what they're trying to do and who is trying to do it and where this is going and whose money is involved and like all of that. So I want to try to make everything as clear as possible so you can make an informed decision that aligns with your own values. Okay? I'm not going to tell you the Christian way to vote. I'm not going to tell you what the Bible says you need to do because I don't think it works that way. All right. So we have, let's see, there's a couple things that I want to cover before we jump into the initiatives. One, I'm just going to read, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Brian Zahn put out a Christian's Guide to Politics, which I think is really helpful. Just as we think through this, the political process, while necessary, has little to do with how God is saving the world. It's necessary, it's important, God's kingdom is going to advance no matter what. Okay? The fate of the kingdom of God does not depend on political contests. Sometimes it feels like that, and I feel a lot of anxiety, and I have to fight that regularly. I'm a little bit scared, and I have to go back and remember, I will still work towards the kingdom no matter what happens. Don't be naive. Political parties are more interested in Christian votes than they are in Christian values. Individual politicians vary, and some of them are really concerned with Christian values. And sometimes, like as a cynic, like I don't know exactly like where they're at or where, what they're telling me, how much I should trust. But overall, political parties are looking for votes. The bottom line for political parties is power. The bottom line for a Christian is love, and therein lies the rub. I like this one. While in pursuit of the ring of power, you are not permitted to abandon the Sermon on the Mount. We should be guided by the Sermon on the Mount. That should be what's forming us. If your political passion makes it hard for you to love your neighbor as yourself, you need to turn it down a notch. Yeah. I have spent a lot of time conversing with people that are directly opposite from me, and just trying to engage in helpful, productive ways, and sometimes it makes me angry, and then I have to step away. And I have to remember that I love that person, and God loves that person. They're made in the image of God. Your task is to bring the salt of Christian civility to an ugly and acrimonious political process. To dismember the body of Christ over politics is a grievous sin. Exercise your liberty to vote, your conscience and conviction, while accepting that other Christians will do the same and vote differently than you. As we talk through these, we're not all going to agree on all of them. Okay? And I hope that you'll believe that I love Jesus, and I'll believe that you love Jesus, even if I say yes and you say no to any given amendment, right? It's more important that you shall be filled with love than it is for your political team to win the game. I hope you have people that you're going to gather together with on election day and have a good time and still love each other really well no matter what happens. All right? As we go through these, there's an elephant in the room on a lot of these amendments, okay? And if we don't acknowledge it, we're going to miss out on a lot. And it has nothing to do with Republicans. Well, it kind of does. It's Tabor, okay? It's Tabor. It's the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And so just really quick, we need a basic understanding of what Tabor is, because it's going to affect a lot of these amendments. It's a Taxpayer Bill of Rights. You can go online and read the Colorado Constitution. Section 2 or Article 2 is the Bill of Rights section. One of those sections is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And basically what it does is it says there is a revenue limit for the state of Colorado where we will not increase revenue above inflation plus population growth. Okay, so if inflation is 3% and our population grows by 2%, then our cap is 5% revenue growth. Okay? Doesn't matter if our economy explodes and GDP is through the roof and we have all of this extra money and the economy is going super great. We are capped at that revenue, and I think most of us, if you filed your tax return, you know what happens if we meet that revenue cap, right? You get a check in the mail, which is your Tabor refund, right? I have kids, my youngest is 16, my oldest are 20 now. They all got an $800 check from a sales tax refund that my 16-year-old does not need $800 just place. But he worked a job for a couple months in December and filed a W-2, and so he got $800. Okay, so there's that revenue limit. The legislature has no power to increase revenue unless they put it to the ballot, right? So excess revenue requirement, we have to refund it. We can vote for tax increases and vote for debt. Our legislature cannot do this. They are powerless to do this. They can refer items to the people, and what you'll see on your ballot, if you look through your ballot, all of a sudden you'll see, man, this one's in all caps. Why is this in all caps? It's weird. None of the other ones are in all caps. Well, it's a tax increase, okay? And Tabor says it has to start with, shall taxes be increased, blah, blah, blah. Those have to be the first words. It has to be in all caps. You know what happens to most people who are not informed voters when it's in all caps grabbing their attention and it starts with the words, shall taxes be increased? Okay, so that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to make it very, very hard to actually increase taxes. So we have to vote for tax increases. We have to vote for debt. It requires an emergency reserve of like 3% of GDP. But you're going to see it in here. Like as we talk about things, we can't just increase taxes. It has to be like a vote of all the people. So we're going to see it. Hopefully you understand. There's things that happen to like if there's a recession and our revenue limit goes down. Even if we rebound the next year, we're still capped at inflation plus population growth. And it can take years to overcome a recession. In 2005, they passed Amendment C, which was to kind of reset it. Like our economy had done really well, and it was time to actually reset and say, let's have a new cap that's up here. And so it's like over 5 years, we're going to kind of get to a new cap. And you know what happened at the end of that 5-year period? What happened in 2008, guys? Right? The whole economy collapsed in the housing crisis, and all of a sudden this reset that we were hoping for didn't materialize because we're coming out of a recession. Okay, so we are still locked into Tabor. Cards on the table. I do not like Tabor. Okay? If you are a strict fiscal conservative that thinks taxation is theft, you probably are in favor of Tabor. Okay? All right, so the first one we're going to talk about, Amendment I, is the exception to rights to bail for murder. Amendment I. And if you look at these, just a couple things as we go through these. You'll see some amendments have letters. Some amendments have numbers. Some propositions have letters. Some propositions have numbers. If it's a letter, it's referred by the legislature. So the Colorado State Legislature has referred this to the ballot. If it's amending the Constitution, then the citizens need to vote on it, and it has to pass by 55%. Okay, so that's why if it's a letter, the legislature referred it to the ballot. If it's a number, it was a citizen-initiated ballot initiative. Okay, so this is coming from the state legislature. They've already passed this so that it will go to the ballot for the amendment. Okay, so what it says on your ballot is, shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning creating an exception to the right to bail for cases of murder in the first degree when proof is evident or presumption is great? My wife wanted to start with this one because we understood it wrong before. When we first read it, we understood it in the opposite way. So right now in the Colorado Bill of Rights, in that section of the Constitution, there is a right to bail for all criminal offenses. If you are charged with some kind of crime, they cannot hold you without bail. Okay? What this is doing is saying, listen, if it's a first-degree murder charge, and the judge feels like there is a preponderance of evidence in this case, he is allowed to not give bail. He is allowed to deny bail in that situation. Okay? So it's giving judges more tools, and so normally what they would probably do in this situation is say, okay, well, bail is set at $10 million, like some ridiculous figure to try to keep this person in jail because they are a danger to society, right? This is giving them the ability to say, no, there's no bail that's going to be set. All right? Again, like the arguments for if you think judges should have the ability to restrict bail in specifically first-degree murder offenses. That's the only one we're providing an exception for, right? If you think like the judge should be able to decide whether or not to give bail, you would be voting yes. Okay? If you think that no matter what the offense is, we should never deny bail to someone. Doesn't matter what they did, doesn't matter what they're charged with, they should be given opportunity to bail themselves out. Right? You would vote no. Okay? Does that make sense? This one is, like once you dig down into it, this one's actually fairly simple once you understand it. There's not a lot of arguments on either side, but what questions do you have? What argument do you want to make, maybe? Does anybody feel still confused about it or feel strongly one way or the other? Yeah?
You said preponderance of the evidence. Is that what evidence or presumption is great actually means?
So that's going to be a legal term that the person who is charged with the offense can appeal, right, and say, well, and then a judge will have to decide, did they meet the standard of a preponderance of evidence, or the exact, there's an exact statement. Let me find it here. Although, if you have your blue books, like at the front, it's like the whole, here's yes and no, here's the arguments for and against. In the back is the actual text of what they're going to write. And the actual text is actually really long and a lot of legalese, and it's really, really complicated. And it's been a lot of fun to dig into that.
What are you voting, Noah? That's all I really want to know.
Yeah. So it says, when proof is evident or presumption is great. Okay? So a judge would just have to be able to show to an appellate court that, yes, here the proof was evident, and the presumption was great.
Is there any other amendments that are close to this that are precedent before this that is like the momentum is shifting towards less bail, less opportunity for bail? Yes?
That's a good question.
Because it seems like if you just put $10 million and it effectively does the same thing, then this amendment is not doing anything different than what is already there. It's actually just getting more tools, which would then give more power, which then is like potentially a slope towards less and less opportunity for bail. Right.
I don't know of like other amendments that are, there's this whole movement that's trying to undo our right to bail. I think in a lot of cases, the fact that bail is available tends to give preference to the wealthy in these situations, right? Like if you have the means to bail yourself out, you are going to be able to bail yourself out. But again, a judge, I mean, I don't know that there's this big movement to get rid of the right to bail altogether. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like this is a, hey, in this case, and it's what probably happened is like somebody actually bailed themselves out, and they are a danger to society, and people are afraid that it might happen again. Yeah, Caitlin?
Similar question. Do we know of the 50 states how many provide bail and how many don't in this situation?
I did a lot of research. I didn't do that much research. I don't know. Yeah.
People are denied bail all the time.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think Colorado tends to be a little bit more progressive in this area. That we're not going to deny bail for anything. So I don't know state by state what that looks like.
You can't rattle them off.
I can't.
So from the Blue Book, one of the things that I gravitated toward was prior to the repeal by the General Assembly in 2020, just 4 years ago, persons charged with first-degree murder were not eligible for bail.
Yeah, so
this is a recent change.
Yeah. It's only been like 4 years that this has been in place. Yeah, that's a good point.
Does anyone know if that was a number or a letter back then? When it was
It was the General Assembly. It wasn't a board vote.
Oh.
The General Assembly said no more death penalty in Colorado.
Yeah.
And hence no more the bail thing.
Yeah. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Everybody feel they understand it pretty well? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Poll by show of hands.
Yeah.
Who's voting yes?
We have a secret ballot for a reason. The next one, Prop 131, ranked choice voting. This one is weird to me, just digging into like the pros and cons and who supports it and who opposes it. This is the weirdest mix of people. You know, it's like Jared Polis is for it, but so is Dick Wadhams, who used to be the chair of the Colorado Republican Party. Lauren Boebert and Michael Bennett are both against it. They agree on it. Diana DeGette is against it. She's a fairly liberal congresswoman. The Denver Post and the Denver and Colorado Springs Gazette, like, I don't know if you've followed the newspapers, but the Gazette is fairly reliably conservative, while the Post is fairly reliably liberal. They are both against this. Okay, so yeah, this is kind of strange that you have these weird political bedfellows in support and opposition to it. Okay, so here's what it says. Shall there be a change to the Colorado Revised Statutes, this is long, creating new election processes for certain federal and state offices, and in connection therewith creating a new all-candidate primary election for U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Treasurer, CU Board of Regents, State Board of Education, and the Colorado State Legislature, allowing voters to vote for any one candidate per office, regardless of the voters or candidate's political party affiliation, providing that the 4 candidates for each office who receive the most votes advance to the general election. And in the general election, allowing voters to rank candidates for each office on their ballot, adopting a process for how the ranked votes are tallied, and determining the winner to be the candidate with the highest number of votes in the final tally. If I walked into the ballot box only reading that, I honestly wouldn't know what to do with it. Okay, so first off, the way we do primaries in Colorado is a little different than a lot of states because you can vote for either primary, right? But you can only vote for one. You will get in the mail your ballots for the Republican primary and the Democrat primary, and you can submit one of those, right? You don't have to be registered with them. You don't have to. You can be completely unregistered. But that's how it currently works for primaries. You can choose which party you want to participate in. What this is doing is essentially getting rid of that and saying you're going to get a slate of nominees for a primary election, right? And you pick one of them. And it's going to be like Republicans and Democrats and Green Party and Independents and another Democrat and, maybe some, I don't know, who knows? There's other part like American Solidarity Party. Who knows? Like you'll get a list of people. You pick one of them and submit your primary ballot. The top 4 vote getters, regardless of party, will be on the ballot. Okay? It's possible that there are 4 Democrats on the final ballot. Could be 2 Democrats and a Republican and an independent. It's just the top 4 vote getters from that primary election. Okay? That is a very different way to do primaries than what we're doing right now. Okay? The argument for that part of it is it gives voters more choice. Okay, it gives you more options, more power as a voter. The arguments against it is it's a little chaotic and it's a little confusing. It reduces the power of the political parties. For some people, that's a benefit. At the same time, there is a vetting process that goes into if you are registered with a party and using the party resources. Then there's a benefit to that. It also can possibly prioritize people with the money to bankroll themselves. If I wanted to run for office, I don't have the money to bankroll myself. I would go to the Democratic Party at the city, state, or county level and use their grassroots organization and try to get myself elected. But if I had the money, I don't necessarily need the party, and I could get myself on the ballot. Okay, so that's the primary. Yeah.
Is the ranking happening in the first one or in the second one?
In the second one. So the first one, it's just the primary is different, right? I kind of like the idea of ranked choice or approval voting, as a concept. This primary strategy. like I don't quite know what to think about it. It feels a little strange. I can kind of sympathize with the people who think this is going to be a little chaotic and confusing, and it could like prioritize people with the money to run their own campaigns. And like I don't like having a two-party system all that much. At the same time, like this feels like a big step rather than a gradual step. Okay. But the way the ranked choice actually works, so the top 4 actually go on the ballot, okay? And then you have an election. So this is like, suppose we had 3 candidates here. Generally in ranked choice, if any one candidate is the first choice for 50% of the people or more, then the election's over, we're done. That person wins, okay? We tally all the votes. If one person gets more than 50% of the first choice vote, it's over. If that doesn't happen, like in this case, the top person got 44%, right? Then what we do is we get rid of the lowest person. They're out. Now we take all of those second choice votes and we give them to the people remaining, okay? So now this person, they got 12% of this person's vote. Or they got 12% of the votes from here. This person got 11% of the votes. This person is now above 50%. Okay? So now and this could go, like if we've got four candidates, this could go one more round if we needed it to, right? So let's say there's 2 Democrats, a Republican, and an independent, and the 2 Democrats kind of split the normal Democratic vote, and the Republican in the first round is in the lead, right? Because they're the only Republican. They've got all the Republican votes, but they didn't get 50% of the vote, all right? Then the independent is probably the one who's out, right? They're gone. Those votes split off. If enough of those votes go to the Republican, if they get over 50%, they win the election because the Democrats split it.
So
okay.
What this amendment is all about is about ranked choice voting.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it's ranked choice voting and the primaries. It's both. It's changing the primaries and it's doing the final ballot in a ranked choice method. Yeah, it is a big... Okay, Colorado has some of the best election processes in the country. Colorado is gold standard for elections. This is a massive change, okay? We are experimenting. Alaska did this. And what it seems like happened is it prefers moderates, okay? It's much easier as a moderate. Right, because like if you're a conservative and you see like a Republican and independent and they're both like, you know, you might rank 1, 2, and then move your way to the left. It's a big change. Okay, it gives people more options. It's a step towards eliminating that 2-party stranglehold that we have. Okay, which is kind of nice. If I were to design it, I would probably do approval voting rather than ranked choice voting. And like I don't have to rank all the people on the ballot. I can say I would be okay with this guy and this guy, okay, or this woman and this woman, right? As opposed to like I got to rank all 4.
It's demanded rank all 4. It's not you can't just rank 1 and 2.
You could leave the last 2 blank. Yeah.
Effectively, it gives you that option.
It does. Yeah. But approval voting is a little bit different in the sense that we're not going from like what is everybody's first, what's everybody's second, right? Does someone have the approval of over 50% of the electorate? That's the difference. Okay. So again, big change to primaries, big change to ranked choice. You might be like, hey, ranked choice is a good methodology, and I think Colorado should be at the forefront of this and experimenting with this, but the primary process is a little crazy. Okay, you could honestly, I don't see this as a gospel issue, guys. But it is a big change, and there's 2 parts to the big change, and I hope that you see both of them rather than just, hey, ranked choice voting. Okay.
I
And-
gotta tell you, I just thought this was about primaries, changing primaries. I didn't read the second part.
It's long and complicated, and if you go to the back, like it gets really into like it's one of the longer ones here. So yeah. Any questions? You feel like you understand the issue?
Do you know who kind of started to get the momentum behind this?
Yeah, it's a guy named Kent Thiry, who's he's a billionaire. You know the DaVita building, the DaVita kidney dialysis stuff. He's big on elections, and so he's kind of the one who's gotten the momentum. He's one of the biggest donors on the for side. Yeah. And then the rest of it, like it's all over the place. Honestly, like it's liberals and conservatives, and like everybody's everywhere. This is not neatly. Well, if you're a conservative, you go this way. If you're a liberal or a leftist, you go this way. It's complicated. It's a big change.
Has the chance to help do that for more things in the future, like because that's one of my problems with the two-party system is that people don't have to think about anything. They just say, "Oh, I'm a Democrat."
Right.
Tick, 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 tick.
Right.
Something right beforehand.
Yeah.
And something I think seems nice about this is that you actually have to think, "Oh, there's two Democrats.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
one? What do I actually do on this?"
Right. I have hope that it would prompt people to do more research. I also have enough cynicism to think that people won't, and like the big argument against it is that it'll cause a lot of confusion, and part of that it's a cynical argument because there's this assumption that voters are not always informed, and it's cynical and it's also in many ways realistic. But weakening the two-party system and providing avenues towards more diversity in the two-party system, I like that. And honestly, like if it weren't for the primary part, I think I could probably get on board with this. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, just to make sure, so voting yes allows these things?
Yeah. Voting yes would put this in place and replace our current system for primaries and elections.
And voting yes on the first one denies bail, or?
Voting yes gives judges the ability to deny bail.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
The negatives of this, I get the confusion piece, but I guess I'm a little confused on the negative of the primary one specifically. It sounds like the negative is that people with money have a better chance. Doesn't seem that different than how it is today.
Sure. Well, yes and no. Like I know people who want to be in politics, and they can go the local route and work with a party to like use their grassroots operation without their own funding. Okay. At the state level, like governors and senators and congressmen. You're gonna have to have money, or you're gonna have like name recognition before you try that, right?
Theoretically, this could lessen the party's dollar amount to fund grassroots candidates. Is that the connection? I guess.
No, it's that people with money could just bypass the parties altogether, and the person that doesn't have money that goes the party route can't get the name recognition to get into the top 4. Yeah.
And you said just Alaska has this? Are there any other states that?
Alaska's the only one I'm aware of, and it's actually on the ballot this year to remove it. Not everybody is thrilled with it, and again, it passed by a razor-thin margin in Alaska anyway, and so I'm sure there were people that were ready with a ballot initiative to repeal it as soon as it passed. So don't take that as an indication of how well they think it went, but. It tends to prefer moderates. Okay, so if you're like a leftist or like a libertarian conservative, like for the right, you're gonna get moved to the middle. And there's this process of like moving the Overton window over time and moving what it means to be a moderate over time that can be helpful too. Okay. All right. We good?
Hey Mark, sorry, real
Yeah.
quick. When they did it in Alaska,
Yeah, well, I mean that's part of the concern for this as well. That because it's so new, because like some people aren't paying attention, and if this passes next election, they're gonna open up their ballot and be like, what is this? You know. So there is the potential for that kind of confusion.
Bobby
Yeah.
says it's also in Maine.
Oh, in Maine. Okay, yeah. Is it the primary process the same too in Maine, or is it just a ranked choice? Okay, yeah. All right. Next, 128. Proposition 128. Which is parole eligibility. Okay. Shall there be a change to the Colorado revised statutes concerning parole eligibility for an offender convicted of certain crimes and in connection therewith requiring an offender who is convicted of second-degree murder, first-degree assault, class 2 felony kidnapping, sexual assault, first-degree arson, first-degree burglary, or aggravated robbery committed on or after January 1st, 2025 to serve 85% of the sentence imposed before being eligible for parole, and requiring an offender convicted of any such crime committed on or after January 1st, 2025, who was previously convicted of any 2 crimes of violence, not just those crimes enumerated in this measure, to serve the full sentence imposed before beginning to serve parole. Okay. Currently, if you are in prison for one of these offenses, you have to serve 75% of the sentence before you are eligible for parole. This is moving it another 10%. Okay? So instead of 75%, like if it's a 10-year sentence, instead of 7.5 years before you can go before a parole board, it's going to be 8.5 years before you can go before a parole board. Okay? Yeah.
Is it already, if it's your third strike, it's full? Is that?
No, not yet. Nope. There's a couple initiatives on here that are related to the fact that Colorado is not great when it comes to violent crimes. Okay, I didn't know that. I saw the argument for this and for the police one, the funding for police. The argument for was the idea that violent crimes are on the rise, or violent crimes are a problem in Colorado. And I was skeptical of that, and then I looked at the numbers, and it's like, oh man, yeah, we're kind of top 10 for almost all of these. Okay, so one approach is to keep offenders like this in jail longer. Another approach that you'll see later is to provide more funding to the police, and I think we'll get to that one too. If you think that longer and harsher jail sentences deter people from committing crimes like this, then you might be in favor of extending this and saying you got to serve more of your sentence before you can be eligible for parole. If you think that a punitive judicial system isn't the best way to reduce crime, you might be against this because you don't want to tie the parole board's hands. And like the parole board can still deny parole at 75% of the sentence and remand them back to prison, right? So depending on your views of criminal justice, like that kind of determines where you're going to land on this. Within the context of violent crime in Colorado is not great. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the measure. What questions, comments, concerns?
I guess the question is, if it is 85% or full, that doesn't, to your point, like ties the parole officer's hands, like they can't advocate on behalf of someone who may be deserving.
If you have, a model prisoner who has completely turned their lives around at 50%, at 75%, like, nope, you got to wait till 85%. Any questions on this one?
Can you talk about the last half of it? Is that something different?
Required an offender convicted of any such crime. Okay, so first of all, it's the timing of it. All of these have time, like they apply to anything after. We can't make laws retroactive. That's just the timing. Who was previously convicted of any 2 crimes of violence, not just those crimes enumerated in this measure, to serve the full sentence imposed before beginning to serve parole. This is kind of like a 3 strikes system, right? If this is your third offense, if one of these is your third offense, regardless if the first 2 were one of these, okay? Does that make sense? You do 2 non-violent offenses. If your third one is a violent offense,
You have to serve the full.
okay.
It says
So-
previously convicted of any 2 crimes of violence. So does
Oh, 2 crimes of violence, not just those crimes. Not just these ones.
Yeah. Any
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That could be a misdemeanor of assault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like, if you think a punitive justice system will help to lower violent crime rates, this kind of makes sense. If you think that a punitive justice system doesn't really move the needle on violent crimes and there are better ways to address the crime rate, this one might not make as much sense. Yeah.
Opening a box, is it also like not just the crime rate, but like a justice and moral angle to it? Like, I was wronged, and my offender needs
Sure.
to spend, like, he needs to do 85% of his time.
Yeah.
That's justice for me, whether he's
Yeah.
reformed at 50% or not.
Yeah.
Like, he was sentenced because,
Uh-huh.
like, is there a moral interpretation
Yeah.
above and beyond just the crime? Like, I don't. If he's gonna
Well,
rate that or not doesn't matter.
I think that like if you're approaching it as we need a punitive approach to justice where this person is punished this much for this crime, as opposed to like a restorative system of justice that says what does it look like to like restore this situation and bring this person back into being a productive member of society. Okay, if we think punishment will do that, then yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so if you're looking at this as like I've been wrong, there needs to be a punishment rather than there needs to be some kind of restoration, then you might say yeah, like you need to do at least 85% in order to be fully punished for what you did, right? Like is that actually producing restoration within society and bringing people into a productive, like creating productive members of society of people who've offended. So it's definitely a moral issue, but it has to do with like how you view justice, and what the best ways are to promote like an ordered society. Anything else? All right. Does it make sense? Feel good about it? Okay. The next one. School choice amendment 8. Oh yeah, school choice amendment 80. That's right. 80. Amendment 80. Okay. So right off the bat, the number tells you what? That is
Legislative.
It is not legislative. It is citizen initiative. Okay? It was 50-50. Yeah.
Just like in school.
Our legislature, I don't think, would have advanced this. Okay. Let me find my notes. Okay. Okay. Cards on the table. I taught for about 15 years at private Christian schools. The last school I taught at was a very wealthy premier Christian school nearby, in Highlands Ranch. Okay. So I when I tell you I want you to know my biases, I was in the system. Okay. This one, Shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution establishing the right to school choice for children in kindergarten through 12th grade and in connection therewith, declaring that school choice includes neighborhood charter and private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education? Okay. You might be looking at this and thinking, I thought we already had school choice, right? My kids opted into, no they didn't. Which one? In middle school? No, they didn't. Euclid?
No, we opted into Powell.
We opted into Euclid. Powell at the time. No, we opted into Powell. Okay. We didn't want to, our kids had friends going to one middle school, but we were in zoned for another middle school, so we opted into the nearby middle school that their friends were going to, right? And then our next kids went to the one we were zoned to. And it was great. We do, as a state, already have school choice. If you have the means and the ability, you can apply to send your kids to any school in the state, essentially, that you can get them to reasonably, right? You are responsible for transportation, getting them. If I wanted to send my kids to, we live in Littleton Public Schools area. If I wanted to send my kids to DPS, it would be my responsibility to get them there, okay? If I wanted to send my kids to Kent or Regis or Mullen or Valor, it would be my responsibility to figure out how to pay for it, okay? That's the system we already have. What this is doing is putting it in the Constitution that it is a right. Just in case, like, Colorado changes, there's a lot of controversy about the efficacy of charter schools, and especially voucher systems, okay? So, if it's in the Constitution, then you have a right to it. It's no longer like the legislature can say, like, nope, you can't, we're not going to do school choice anymore, or whatever. If I have a right to it, then the next, okay, this is the against argument. The next thing I'm going to do is say, since it is a constitutional right, the state needs to help me do it. And I should get a voucher to go to, or charter schools should get more funding, or, okay, so that's kind of where we're already a school choice state. This would just put it in the Constitution, so it would be harder for the legislature to change that, and it would provide an opportunity for some people who want further funding for some of these alternative school choices to say, hey, vouchers are aligned with our Constitution. Okay? More charter schools are aligned with our Constitution. I am a public school advocate. And I think in a lot of ways, these alternative school options, what they end up doing is they pull funds from the schools that need it most, where these alternative schools get to choose their own students and reject the students they don't want to serve. Okay? And what ends up happening in voucher systems that we've seen implemented is it's the families that were already going to private schools are now using vouchers to do that. And the families that are in poverty and stuck at a neighborhood school because they don't have the transportation options, they don't have the information to get their kids to a different school, they just lose a lot of funding. And in general, it's the most vulnerable kids. It's the kids that need extra supports. It's the kids that are on the IEPs. It's the kids with developmental disabilities that are now put at risk. Okay, so yeah, I am not coming at this objectively. Just so you know, there are arguments. If you believe that, hey, the state should I'm a tax-paying individual, and my kids aren't benefiting from public schools, so my taxes should go towards where I'm sending my kids, and I think that's just fair. Okay? This when I was at that private school, this is the argument that they were making to try to get vouchers in Douglas County, right? That you shouldn't have to, and I think we as a community have decided that public education is a social good. and we are collectively invested in that. And if you choose to step out of that, great, that is your choice. But we are collectively funding this education, and that's where our funds are going to go. Okay. A lot of times the voucher, like when I say I pay property taxes, so I should get a voucher. In a lot of the systems, the voucher amount, because like we spend, it depends, like you look at different websites, we spend anywhere from 8 to 15,000 per student, depending on what website you look at. It's really hard to nail down specific details. So if I get a voucher for 8,000, my property taxes aren't that much. Okay. It's not like I'm paying that much in, but I want the amount that my kid would have gotten or would have been spent on my kid, but it doesn't work that way. Not every kid costs as much to educate. I will also say education, it's my contention that education doesn't work in a capitalist system. It is not a way to increase value to shareholders. You will always lose money if you try to make money off of education at the K-12 level. Okay? It just costs too much. And I was a teacher. I was super broke, even at a premier private school. It doesn't work. Okay, that was my argument against it. There are reasons, I can see reasons that people would vote for this. Any questions, comments, pushback? Yeah.
So is it giving, like the vouchers are giving money to people, and is it taking away from the public schools?
Uh-huh.
It's taking away 'cause they're not.
Yeah, well, especially with Tabor, like we have these revenue caps. We are limited in the amount of money we have available. And so it depends on how the voucher system is designed. But what it generally does in a lot of the voucher systems that have been implemented in other places is it ends up pulling funding from the overall pot for education. Yeah.
So this amendment is giving the precedent to start arguing for vouchers.
Yeah, it's like handing people some ammunition. This is not a voucher amendment. We are not going to vote on this and then next month people are going to line up for their vouchers. Okay, this is just this is an initial skirmish. What's that?
It's like paving the way.
It's like paving. It's like a little bit of ammunition to be able to then make an argument for vouchers.
Has it paved the way for another thing other than vouchers? An amendment like this?
I think one of the worries is if I have a constitutional right to educate my kid however I want, then I can make the argument that the state cannot regulate at all. Like if I want to homeschool my kids on my farm and do it however I want, like the state can't tell me that these are the standards I need to meet. Okay? So that's one of the worries, that's one of the arguments against it, that if I have the right to school choice, then I have the right to do it however I want, and the state can't regulate that.
So if we have the choice to do this, so that means the school district won't have anything to do with my decisions are?
Well, so right now you can already choose your school.
Yes.
This technically doesn't really change the way we operate in Colorado. Okay? We are already a school choice state. This just puts it in the Constitution that we're a school choice state, so it would make it harder for, say, the state legislature to pass laws about like regulating charter schools or eliminating charter schools or things like that. So yeah, I mean, if this passes, nothing happens immediately because we're already a school choice state. But it provides an argument down the road. Like, I don't have a charter school in my community, and I have a right to a charter school in my community. So, let's go. I need a charter school.
But this is the intention to see all the students at the same level equally?
No. I mean, if you vote no on this, you're not voting no on school choice. Like, you can still send your kids wherever like in our district, We have Littleton High School, which is a really well known for their International Baccalaureate program. We have Arapahoe High School, which is known for its STEM program. We have Heritage, which I don't know what our specialty is. We're just more normal, like run of the mill. And I can say like, ooh, the IB program at Littleton looks really cool. I'm going to send my kid there instead of to Heritage, right? I can already do that. If this passes, I can still do that. Okay? Nothing is going to change for us immediately. What it seems like this is leading to is after this passes, next election, you're going to see some ballot initiatives that say, since we have a constitutional right to XYZ, we should provide funding for, school vouchers, for, more funding for charter schools, open more charter schools to make them more available. So, does it directly affect your district right now? No. You can still do what you want. Will it affect your district down the road? Probably.
You said it was a citizen initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, who is it? Homeschool moms? Who's behind this?
Yeah. So one thing you can do. Let me encourage you. If you go to ballotpedia.org and go to each initiative, you can actually see. Here are the proponents for it, and here are the people that have given money and how much they've given.
Ooh, what's it?
Okay, ballotpedia.org. So I don't have that information off the top of my head, but it is a lot of the private school. Like I know for a fact there are people I used to work with that are very involved with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Colorado.
Association of Private
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So I just want to make a general statement and get people's reaction
Sure.
to it. When it comes to amendments where we're changing the Colorado Constitution, my default is to say no.
There should be a higher bar for putting something in the Constitution rather than the revised statutes.
Yeah.
Yes. And there is. It has to get to 55%, but at the same time, we should take it more seriously that it's actually going in our Constitution. Yeah. And this better make a lot of sense if we're going to enshrine it in our Constitution. Okay. That's a good point.
So what would be the argument on the other side? Is it like we already have this and so we want to make sure it can't be taken away?
That's one part of it.
Okay.
The other part of it, yeah, I mean, I know some of these people, and I know what they've worked towards in the past, and I know that they're looking for a voucher system, and it's just going to make it cheaper for the rich people sending their kids to private schools. So the argument for it is these families are paying property taxes towards public schools. Shouldn't the money that they are paying go towards their own kids' education? Okay, if I'm paying $3,000 in property taxes and I'm not sending my kids to the public school, why am I paying for that school that I'm not using?
So if you don't have kids, then you shouldn't pay for everything.
Yeah. Anything? Yeah.
Kind of what you were saying. What kinds of people would not want school choice?
So I don't think anybody's arguing against school choice necessarily.
So there is no real danger it would go away at this point.
No. Nobody is trying to get rid of school choice. I think what we're probably more trying to do is make sure that charter schools and private schools and home schools are providing a sufficient education and are properly regulated. Okay, you can go and Google charter school fraud and run down a rabbit hole. Okay, I think that's what we would be advocating. I don't want to get rid of charter schools. I just don't want them to draw funds away from the most needy students in my community. Okay. Any questions? Feel good?
If this is passed yes, that will be the.
Down the road, I think there will be bad outcomes for public schools. Yeah. All right. The next one. Yeah, we're going from a controversial one now to an even more controversial one. Amendment 79. Abortion. Okay. Shall there be a change to the Colorado Constitution recognizing the right to abortion and in connection therewith prohibiting the state and local governments from denying, impeding, or discriminating against the exercise of that right, allowing abortion to be a covered service under health insurance plans for Colorado state and local government employees and for enrollees in state and local governmental insurance programs. Okay. We're not the only state doing this. And there's a reason we're not the only state doing this, right? 2022, the Dobbs decision repeals Roe v. Wade, despite the fact that Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Coney Barrett all swore during their Senate testimonies that Roe v. Wade was settled law, right? The Dobbs decision reversed Roe v. Wade. And so now it is no longer recognized that the federal constitution, that our United States Constitution protects the right to an abortion, which means that all kinds of states are rushing to put it into their constitutions to protect the right to an abortion. Okay? That's half of what this is doing. Okay? The first half is saying we are basically going to do what Roe v. Wade kind of did. And Colorado goes a little bit further. Colorado is one of the only states that has no restrictions on the late-term abortions. All right, I don't know if you remember in 2020 there was a ballot initiative about late-term abortions that failed to pass. Okay, so Colorado is one of the least restrictive states in the country. You will probably hear stories about a doctor in Boulder who does late-term abortions. Okay. So that's the first half of this. That it's putting it into our Constitution to protect it because it is no longer recognized as a right to privacy from the 14th Amendment of our U.S. Constitution. That's what Roe v. Wade essentially did. The justices said 14th Amendment guarantees a right to privacy that includes the privacy of a woman to her body. The Supreme Court said we are not scientists. We don't know when a fetus is viable and is a human, so we are going to put the limit of, I forget what it was, 20 weeks, 24 weeks, somewhere around there, to say that states cannot legislate against an abortion before this many weeks. Okay? So Roe v. Wade wasn't like you can have abortions as long as you want. It's just that states cannot restrict abortions before this many weeks. Okay? Since it was overturned, Colorado is one of many states that are now putting it on their ballot to add an amendment to their constitution to protect that right. Okay? The second part of it, right now, if you read our Constitution, there's like 30 articles, 40 articles. The second article is the Bill of Rights, the Colorado Bill of Rights. The fifth one deals with our legislative branch. Okay, so if you read through this, and it gets really deep and boring, there is currently in the fifth article about the legislature, there is a piece that says that we cannot use taxpayer money to provide abortion care, right? In other words, if you're a state employee and you want to get an abortion, your state health insurance cannot cover any portion of that. No taxpayer funds can be used for abortion care, okay? That's in Article 5. What this does is it says we're going to add a statement in Article 2. We're going to add a section that guarantees the right to an abortion. And we're going to remove this section from Article 5 that says the state can't fund abortion care for people on abortion on state insurance. Okay, this includes Medicaid. Like we know people who are on Medicaid who ran into this kind of issue. Okay, if you are against abortion at all stages, if if you are fully pro-life, if you believe that life begins at conception, this is an easy no for you. Okay? It's probably going to pass anyway, just so you know, like the polling on this. I don't think this one's in question, okay? But if you are fully pro-life, you believe life begins at conception, it's an easy no, okay? If you are not fully pro-life, if you're not sure exactly when a fetus becomes a full human deserving of all the rights and protections available, you might be a yes here, okay? If you think yes, there's mystery here, but I also don't think that the taxpayers should fund abortion care. Okay, there's a lot of different ways you can go here. I want to make sure you understand there's two parts to this, okay? And honestly, the second part is probably a little bit more controversial, because most people I talk to are fairly firmly pro-life or pro-choice. But some of them are less so on, like, should taxpayers fund it? Questions? But you want to dig into what the Bible says?
What does it have to pass by, 55%?
55%, yeah. And I think it will. I don't think this one is in question.
So, we have no regulations on late-term abortions?
There are regulations. I mean, we don't have strict limits on like late-term abortions. In other words, we don't say like at 8 months or at 35 weeks or anything like that. But there are regulations. I can't tell you exactly what they are. But it's not like somebody is showing up at 9 months and just like, I changed my mind. Can we do this? It doesn't work like that. And that kind of care is very rare. Most providers won't do it. And in almost every case, it's fetal viability and life of the mother. In 2020, when this was on the ballot for late-term abortions, we ran the numbers, and it came out to, like, in the past couple years, at the time, there was 8 of these late-term abortions. So if somebody's telling you this is happening all the time, or this is very, like, common, the vast majority of abortions happen very early in a pregnancy. And if you want to get into the technicalities, if you believe that life begins at conception, IUDs are abortifacient. Most birth control is abortifacient. Most fertilized, like 30 to 50% of fertilized eggs don't implant on the uterine wall. Like it gets really weird really fast. And this is what we're running into post-Roe, is that there's chaos. Alabama passes, like the Supreme Court rules that a person is defined, like a fetus is defined as a human person. And now you like if that's true, nobody's going to do IVF. No, like if they really believe that, they're not going to do IUDs. And if you're restricting birth control, you know what's going to happen to the number of unwanted pregnancies. Okay, like wherever you're at, pro-life, pro-choice, the number of abortions tends to go up with pro-life leadership, along with infant mortality rates, maternal mortality rates, and general access to like general pregnancy care for women. Okay? I was really surprised. Matt Chandler recently, of all people, said the Republican Party has been manipulating you around abortion since the 70s. They're not invested in actually solving the problem. If you track the statistics, it kind of tracks. Okay. You understand there's 2 parts to this. You're voting on both parts of this.
Yep, moving on.
Okay. All right.
Good job, Mark. Good job.
Okay. Didn't want to get shot or anything. KK, Prop KK. What does the letter tell you? Okay, what do you notice about this right off the bat? All caps.
Speaking of guns.
It's Tabor, and it starts with what? Shall taxes be increased by $39 million annually to fund mental health services, including for military veterans, at-risk youth, school safety, gun violence prevention, support services for victims of domestic violence, other violent crimes, authorizing the tax on gun dealers, gun manufacturers, and ammunition vendors at the rate of 6.5% of the net taxable sales for the retail sales of any gun precursor part, or ammunition with safekeeping, and spending all of the new tax revenue as a voter-approved revenue change. Okay. Adding a 6.5% tax on guns, gun parts, and ammunition, right? And saying that we are going to keep all of the revenue as a voter-approved revenue change. Okay? And it's going to fund these things. Primarily mental health services. Okay? This is pretty straightforward. It's just taxes on guns and ammunition with the money going towards mental health services. Okay? We live in a society that has and loves guns. Second Amendment. Depending on how you read it. And how regulated you want your militia to be. I will say, my kids growing up in schools in a mass shooting era has been incredibly detrimental. Okay, the times that my kids have gone through mass shooter drills, active shooter drills, it wears you down over time. I remember as a teacher, I was in the IT department, and I had I had a bunker in the basement. And I had TVs and I had all my cameras that I could see around the whole school. And the lockdown alarm went off, and I always know if there's going to be a drill, and it wasn't a drill. And so we went into motion. We locked all the doors. I pulled up all the cameras, and I see our security officer sprinting down the halls, and it was terrifying. And it turned out it was something stupid. Somebody dialed the wrong number, and it put us in lockdown because he was dumb. My kids tell me stories of hearing a slam door and diving under their table, their desk. Okay. I don't have a lot of hope that we can change our relationship to guns in the short term. Okay? I am cynical enough politically, I don't see that happening. If we can use the sale of some of those guns to provide mental health services to people who are impacted by that, that's the argument for it. All right? The argument against it is it's inflationary along a certain sector. And there are legitimate reasons for a gun. My oldest twin just got her own apartment. She's living by herself, and she told me she's thinking about maybe having, a small gun. Okay, like that's not what I'm arguing against. I also want her to understand the ramifications of having a gun in the house and the statistics around that. But that's not what I'm necessarily against. And honestly, I don't mind that she'll pay 6.5% more for that. And I don't think she does either. Yeah.
I have an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Question.
Sure.
If the overwhelming majority of gun owners are responsible gun owners, they're the ones who would be spending money and paying this tax.
Uh-huh.
Even though they're the responsible gun owners, right?
Yeah.
So if we believe that these services should be funded, we should fund these services.
Uh-huh.
But passing this puts that on the responsible gun owners, and it's kind of a forced donation,
Mm-hmm.
just because they happen to have that hobby or means of gathering food or
Sure. Yeah. That's the argument against this. Yeah. That there are responsible people who will be impacted by this. Yeah.
Is there any evidence that this tax targets a poorer population?
I don't know that there's evidence necessarily of that. I don't know what the breakdown would be along gun ownership, and not just gun ownership, but like general gun purchasing and like how frequently are you going through ammunition? Like I don't know that a person living in poverty is going through ammunition fairly regularly. I don't know. I don't have the statistics on that.
One of my curiosities around this one is like, could it potentially funnel gun sales via different avenues that are not regulated?
Potentially, yeah. So individual sales, like if I just sold you a gun individually, yeah, it doesn't apply there.
Okay, that's
Or that are already happening.
Or there are, yeah.
That are funding a lot of the violent crime.
Sure.
or what did you say?
Yeah, like a lot of the violent crime is actually happening by people obtaining guns the wrong way. Yeah.
Does any sale include like government contracts?
No. It doesn't apply to police, peace officers, local, like National Guard. Government contracts it doesn't apply to. It's just individuals. Yeah. Individuals buying at stores. Do you feel you understand it?
Yeah.
I think Caitlin's done a good job of providing the argument against this.
Good job, Caitlin.
All right. Let's do one more, and then I think we're running out of time. We weren't going to cover candidates. If you came here wanting to talk about candidates, we can do that after if you're really interested. Prop 130.
We do.
This is peace officer funding. Shall there be a change to the Colorado Revised Statutes concerning state funding for peace officer training and support, and in connection therewith directing the legislature to appropriate $350 million to the Peace Officer Training and Support Fund for municipal and county law enforcement agencies, hire and retain peace officers, allowing the fund to be used for pay bonuses, initial and continued education and training, and a death benefit for a peace officer, police, fire, and first responder killed in the line of duty, and requiring the funding to supplement existing appropriations. Right off the bat, do you notice that this was not in all caps? Did anybody pick up on that?
What's up with that?
Because it doesn't say increase.
It doesn't say shall taxes be increased, and it doesn't say shall debt be increased. It just says shall the legislature allocate this money. Doesn't say where it's coming from. It doesn't say we're going to apply a tax here, we're going to do a mill levy, we're going to do this or that, so that we have $350 million to spend over here. Okay? It's just saying one-time expenditure, $350 million allocated for peace officers. And it is tied to Colorado is not great when it comes to violent crimes. Okay? And if you believe that more policing will help to reduce violent crimes, then this kind of makes sense. If you think that maybe there are other things that we can invest in that will lower violent crimes, those things are going to lose funding. Okay? Does that make sense? It's just $350 million. It's not like recurring. It's not like every year we're going to provide this. It's we're going to allocate this money, and it's going to be spent for these things.
Does it mean that they're raising that much money, or it already exists and they're just going to react?
It just means they're going to find room in the budget for it. Not going to raise it. It's not going to take on debt. Not going to do a mill levy.
I would love to know.
Yeah. Do you have a question back there? Or? Yes is for allocating $350 million. No is against allocating $350 million. Okay? So, You might believe that more policing will help, but you also think we should do it in a more fiscally responsible way. And then you'd vote no. You might say, like, hey, like violent crime is such a problem, we need to fund it right now and figure it out. Like, that would be a yes. You might think there are better ways to reduce violent crime than more policing. And this is going to cost those things money. And you'd be a no.
Do we know what those things are? That's like the gray area.
I think if we definitively knew the answer, we'd be better at fighting it. I think there's a lot of community investment we can do. I think community policing, as opposed to like a police force of people that aren't part of your specific community, I think that can be really beneficial. I think there's after school programs.
Not doing that? Like the
This
second thing
This
you
could go to
mentioned?
This could go to some of that. Yeah. I think things like after school programs. I think investing more in education, investing more in some of our social services. Honestly, violent crime tends to follow poverty rates, and it's a correlation, but it also feels like they're very tightly aligned. So we're going to provide more police officers. I don't know that that's going to move the needle a lot. It might.
Do you know, like, the trend on violent crime? Because you said we're bad.
Yeah.
Because I know there was like a defund the police type of movement.
Yep.
Is this a reaction to that? And did
Sure.
violent crime go up because of
Absolutely.
that?
Well, no. Like if you look at the violent crime rate in Colorado, it's like a sine curve. I don't know if you guys remember math. I used to teach math.
Do you remember that?
Where like it kind of goes up and down, and right now we're 2 quarters trending down. But it feels like every 2 quarters we trend down, then we trend up 2 quarters, and then we trend down 2 quarters. So, like it doesn't feel like we're moving the needle. Okay. So is it up? Is it down? COVID threw a whole wrench in like long-term statistics. We have 2 quarters where it's trending down. It's correlated to a nationwide trend of violent crime trending down. So I don't know. Like we're on a good trajectory right now. I don't know that means a lot when we look at the long-term statistics.
So for the fiscal side of this, it's saying 350 million without stipulating where it's going to pull that. So other places will be less funded because of this. Do you have a sense of what's the total budget, Colorado budget?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't.
I just don't know how heavy.
Yeah, like what percent?
Mill is,
Yeah. I don't. Maybe somebody could look that up. Like, what's Colorado's annual state budget?
If it follows the national trend, it'd be like what, 400 million is the state budget?
No, I don't know.
It's a joke about
Okay, I was gonna say, I know how to address that. Yeah. And it's while people are looking at. Yeah, go ahead.
Really quick, this may be a dumb question. Is peace officer and police officer the same?
A peace officer, like it's a more all-encompassing. It's police officers and sheriffs and community police, and like it's a broader term, right?
But not really different. It's the same group of people. Just
It includes police officers, but it also includes sheriffs and
I'm seeing 46 billion.
46 billion. Okay, so just under around 1%, almost 1%.
That was very fast that you found that. Also, you remember math.
Yeah.
I just want you to know you're not up against the clock on our end.
Okay.
If people need to leave, they can. However, you're also
Sure.
under no obligation to go indefinitely. You can
Okay.
go as long as you want to go.
The weird thing about me is I love talking politics, and I could be here all night, but Chas
I
will
love
probably
this.
pull me
So
away.
if it's just us, that's fine. But
Do you want us to crack the window?
It's a little warm, yeah. It's a
we
little
can
warm,
crack the
yeah.
sliding door. If people need to leave at any time, you're more than welcome to. I know we said till 8:30, but if you're
enjoying this.
Yeah.
You can go as long as you want.
Okay.
Cool. One thing I was just noticing is in this, it says, continuing education doesn't specify, but if you read
Yeah.
the initiative on 49, it does specify what the continuing ed is, and that may be of interest to know what they're referring
Yeah.
to.
On which one?
For this one, like in the middle of page 49, it does specify what the funding must be used to do in a bit more detail.
Yeah,
than just the
yeah.
ballot measure, so to be more.
Yeah, you can go and see like the actual text. This is what's hard is like they're distilling into a paragraph when what's actually going into the revised statutes is like pages and pages long, right? So there's a whole section on definitions, like what is a peace officer, what do we, what does continuing education mean? So yeah, it'll get into the weeds pretty quick.
I'm still fairly new to Denver, but
Yeah.
Are there gross examples of like Denver, Colorado being under, like having a lack of peace officer availability?
That's a good question. I can't say from experience. I don't know, Josh, if you know like.
Like cases
I know in
of
Aurora
assault.
right
Yeah.
now they have
Yeah.
a serious staffing problem.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
way understaffed.
Yeah.
I heard Denver was 200 understaffed, but
Yeah.
that was a hearsay. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that
Yeah.
as gospel.
Yeah, there are areas where
Like the chief
Staffing.
calls it a staffing crisis.
right.
They can't find people.
Yeah.
I'll keep it going.
Yeah.
So, of these 6 pages, I, on the referred questions, I'm going, huh?
Yeah.
Referred question to S, to T, to U, and to V. To V or not to V? Yes.
Where's that? I'm sorry.
These are
Okay.
Denver's,
Valid.
this is Denver, shall, referred question to S. Referred question to T. I think we're on page-
Oh, is that specifically the Denver ballot? Yeah, I'm I do not have the Denver ballot. Yeah, I have my. If anybody wants to know what is happening in Arapahoe County, we can talk about that. Go vote on 1A. But yeah, I'm not up to speed on the Denver specific ballot.
Anybody?
Brett knows a bit because he works for the city, and so he has some good insight into a lot of the ins and outs of it, and I'm sure he'd be happy to share some to what he can speak to. Thoughts.
Let's keep going through the Colorado ballot. I'll tell you what. I'll go till 9, and then I'll stop there. Okay. Let's do Amendment K. I think is easy. It'll be quick. This is a state legislature one, right? Because it starts with it has a letter. Shall there be amendments to the Colorado Constitution concerning the modification of certain deadlines in connection with specified elections? The current law is after the Legislative Assembly, 90 days after they have to have everything submitted. All signatures for ballot initiatives have to be submitted 90 days after. Okay? Legislative Assembly ends. You've got 90 days to get everything submitted to the Secretary of State. Right? That's the date. This is saying, you know what? We could use more time. Let's say 83 days after. It gives us another week for our election workers to put together these materials, right? And then part of the law right now says that these need to be distributed 15 days before the last day of voter registration. And that's not great because now you can register same day, right? So this is moving it to 45 days before the election. Let me make sure I have my number there. Yeah, 45 days before the election, right? It's no longer tied to registration dates because you can register all the way up to the day of election. But you are going to get these books 45 days before the election. And if you want to get something into this book, you've got a week less to do it because the election workers want more time to prepare these. Make sense? Yes, we're giving election workers more time. No, they have plenty of time already. Okay, or we don't want to limit citizens' abilities to get signatures and get ballot initiatives, they should have more time to be able to do that. Okay, you know very far in advance what the date is going to be, what the deadline is going to be. Just saying. Okay. Is that easy enough? Any questions on that? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, good. Let's do J. This might surprise you, the wording here. Shall there be an amendment to the Colorado Constitution removing the ban on same-sex marriage? How many of you, like, first time reading this, thought, wait, there's a ban on same-sex marriage? Okay. The Colorado Constitution currently says, I have the exact wording. Only a union of one man and one woman shall be valid or recognized as a marriage in the state. Article 2, Section 31 of the Colorado Constitution. Okay? How many of you knew that our Colorado Constitution said marriage is only one man and one woman? Didn't know that, right? Because after Obergefell, it didn't matter. The Supreme Court rules that the Constitution protects the right to same-sex marriage, so our state constitution cannot go against that. Right? So right now, this section in the Constitution, right now, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all, has no impact. If you are worried that Obergefell might be overturned, you might be worried that it could matter in the future. Okay? Nobody thought Roe v. Wade would be overturned, and it was. Okay? Obergefell feels a lot less safe than Roe v. Wade was. Okay? If you think that the Bible is clear that marriage is one man and one woman, and our state should honor that, you would vote no on this. Okay? If you think the Bible is clear that marriage is between one man and one woman, but the state shouldn't apply my religious belief to the law, you would probably vote yes on this. If you believe that the Bible is not clear on that, you would probably be a yes. Okay? Here's where the controversy ends. And again, right now this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It will only matter if Obergefell gets overturned. Okay? Which will depend largely on the presidential election, which we're not going to talk about. The concern among conservative Christians is one, yes, they want their beliefs enshrined in the Constitution. They want the state to recognize their view of marriage. Okay, this is what marriage is, and the state should recognize that. Two, they want to be able to discriminate against homosexual relationships. Okay, we're in Colorado. There was a baker, right? You remember this. Those are the concerns about this. Again, right now, yes, no, it doesn't matter at all right now. If Obergefell gets overturned, or if we just want our Colorado Constitution to actually align with what Coloradans believe, then yeah, you can see that. But that's why this is there, right? It's weird that our Colorado Constitution says this. This is removing that. It's actually just removing it altogether. It's not putting something in its place.
So there's no definition of marriage?
There's no definition, and it's going to rely on what the Supreme Court says, the federal Supreme Court says. Yeah, so our Colorado State Constitution will not have a definition where only this type of union is recognized, or these are the types of unions that we recognize.
Is it still between two people, or do we recognize?
It won't say. It's a good question. Yeah, if you go to the back, this is probably the shortest one in the back because it's just basically saying strike through. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and the Supreme Court overturns it,
Yeah.
then what?
Then it goes back to, in the same way that when they overturned Roe v. Wade, now it goes back to the states, and all the states are deciding what to do, and Alabama does this, and Mississippi does this, and
It protects it, and then that, like, it's not saying that we're putting it into our constitution, like, we're not protecting that.
we are not restricting it anymore. Yeah. Yeah, we are not making a positive declaration that we will honor marriages of this type. We are saying, like, we don't have qualifications anymore of what kind of marriages we will uphold.
So then we'll have to go back and do something else.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, there's not more.
Any other questions? All right. Let's do G. Just because, like, on first reading this, I didn't understand it. And I came to a conclusion, and then I went back and I was like, I think I understand this differently. Shall there be amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning the expansion of eligibility for the property tax exemption for veterans with a disability to include a veteran who does not have a service-connected disability rated as 100% permanent disability, but does have individual unemployability status? Okay. You also notice it is not in all caps. Okay. So my initial concern was we're providing a property tax exemption. We're not saying where the money comes from. Okay. That was my initial mistake. Okay. Because we already provide this kind of funding, these kind of tax credits, and it comes from, it's one of the things that the state can use surplus revenue for, right? So we got our Tabor limit. Surplus revenue has to be refunded to the citizens, except for a handful of things, including veterans property tax deductions for veterans with a disability. Okay, and that's what's changed. If you look at the text of this, what it currently says is disabled veterans, which is defined as veterans with 100% disability. Right. So you're a veteran. You have a service-related injury, you go to the VA, you submit your disability claim, they rate your disability at a certain percentage. If it's 100%, it means like you are unable to work, you are unable to like care for yourself, you get all of the benefits, right? This is changing it to say, instead of saying disabled veteran, it says veteran with a disability. And the difference is, there are other types of non-military disabilities. So if you are a veteran and you qualify for unemployability disability, okay? Like you are unemployable, then you will also get the same property tax benefits that 100% disabled veteran got. Is that starting to make sense? Okay. You have a disability that's not rated with the Veterans Affairs Organization at 100%. But it is rated with the state as you are unemployable. Okay? So these benefits are now going to apply to you as well. Okay? It's a few $1 million. I was worried because it didn't specify where it was coming from, but it comes from surplus revenue that's above the Tabor limit.
What would be the argument against it?
The argument against it, I mean, it's basically we have better things to spend our money on. Or like I want a bigger refund. It's like 3.5 million, which is like 0.001%.
Again, I'm just
yeah. Any questions on that? Does that make sense?
So if you're yes.
Yes. Then more veterans are going to get benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. If you are no, then the same veterans who were getting benefits will still keep getting benefits. We're just not going to add to the pool. Prop 129. What time is it?
It's like 8-ish.
This is a confusing one too. Like, this one threw me for a loop. Just reading it. I'm not gonna. It's really long. Currently, we have licensing and registration for veterinarians, veterinary technicians, and veterinary technical specialists. There's the three. I've got it written down. We've got 3 levels, right? If your pet needs to be spayed or neutered, it has to be done by a veterinarian. A vet tech and a vet tech specialist cannot do that, right? What this is doing is it's creating a new category. And the new category is veterinary professional associate. Okay? You have to have a master's degree. This one is put forward by the Dumb Friends League in coordination with, well, CSU can't back political activity like as a state college, but they are putting together a master's degree for veterinary professional associates. Okay, in the same way that if you go to your doctor's office, you might see a physician assistant instead of an MD, right? This is providing another level and providing a certification and board process for it. And these people are allowed to do routine surgeries like spay and neutering under the supervision of a veterinarian. Okay? So the argument for it is right now it is hard to get veterinary care in Colorado. Westward said something like 70%, or veterinary clinics reported refusing 70% of people that were looking for care. Okay? Because they were just overloaded. I didn't know that. I haven't had a problem getting my dog into the vet, but statistically, statewide, based on reporting, there's a problem. Okay? This helps to solve the problem because you don't have to go all the way through veterinary school in order to fill a gap here. And it gives like veterinary techs and tech specialists an opportunity to move up and do more without going all the way through veterinary school. The argument against it is there's the potential for a lower standard of care, right? If you end up with lackluster certification processes and you have an online degree mill that's handing out veterinary professional associate degrees to people who just want to go make a quick buck, it really is going to depend on how well the board does certification and licensing.
And will this go through DORA, like to the standard regulatory?
Yes. Yeah. The organization that has been doing certification will be tasked with this as well. Yeah. It's a master's degree. CSU is put CSU wants students to start doing this and going down this path. The Dumb Friends League feels it's important.
Again, do any other states have this? Is this a thing that's like?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Brand new, we're like, hey, let's try this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that other states have this kind of certification process. I will say it's weird that we have this level for humans, but not for pets.
Yeah, that is kind of like, this is like the PA of like veterinary.
Yeah, I mean the difference is like there is routine surgery that can be done on animals. But yeah, again, it'll kind of depend on the certification process and how strict they are.
So the Blue Book says there are currently no academic programs for this profession.
Yep. Yeah. That's the thing. CSU is starting a program. Like if this goes through, they have a program ready for people to start. So we would not see any veterinary professional associates until around 2027. So this is like forward looking. It's not an immediate, like we have a crisis and we're going to solve it right now.
If this passed, Do I have the choice to say I want?
Yeah. You still have the choice. Like, you can go to a vet and say, like, I want the veterinarian to do this routine surgery rather than, you know, it might be more expensive, and you might have trouble finding someone to do it. But you're not being forced to use someone like this.
I'm asking you because last year we had a little dog and he has like a bladder removal. And I won't be like, you know.
Yeah.
If it's no,
Well, and
somebody who knows
again,
how.
if that's not a routine surgery, it doesn't apply here. Something more complicated, and again, it'll be like there's all kinds of definitions here. But like gallbladder surgery, I don't know that would fall under the category of routine. It's really more like spaying and neutering, and yeah. Any questions? All right. Sports betting. Oh, Mountain Lion. If you are against hunting altogether, you'd probably say yes. If you think the Colorado wildlife, what's the CPW? CW? Colorado Parks and Wild. That's what I was looking for. CPW does a good job of regulating hunting tags and all of that. Then you would probably be a no. All right.
Which one is that?
That's the
127.
127 large cat hunting. The arguments against it are essentially this causes suffering to animals. That's for it. Yeah, that's the argument for it. This is causing agony to animals. And it's really, if you are against hunting in general, you would be for it. Yeah.
I'm going to say two quick things.
Yeah.
Mountain lions are not endangered.
Right.
Lynx are, but lynx have been federally banned for decades.
Yeah.
So this is another one where callers saying, should the federal ban ever go away?
Right.
Can they be protected here?
This is not saying like if it fails, you can go out and start shooting big cats wherever you see them. There are still regulations around like how you can hunt them and get tags, and the CPW in general. I'm not a hunter. The hunters I know tell me that the CPW does a good job of regulating this, and we shouldn't tie their hands. If you are against hunting altogether, if you are like a member of PETA, and you think like any kind of hunting is bad, that's where this is coming from.
If you really want to dig into this, we have a great resource in our church, Murphy Robinson.
Yeah? Is he a big hunter?
Well, he's on the board.
Oh, he's on the board? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
California passed this. Go look at what it did to that whole ecosystem. If you want an example.
Yeah.
So passing means you can't kill it all?
You can't kill it all. And CPW can no longer regulate the hunting of them. There's just no hunting of them. Okay? That's if you vote yes.
They probably kill all the deer and stuff.
All right. Sports betting taxes. Can we keep the excess revenue from sports betting taxes instead of refunding it to casinos?
Oh, and it's going towards water, right?
And it's going towards water conservation.
Which one is it?
Sports betting, that is JJ.
Sports betting.
Proposition JJ.
Betting on sports games?
Yeah. If there is excess revenue, we no longer have to refund it to the casinos and the sporting books. We can keep it and put it towards water conservation.
Which number is that?
JJ. Judicial discipline. I think that's the only one we didn't cover. It creates a board of judges, attorneys, and citizens. The judges are appointed by the Supreme Court. The attorneys and citizens are appointed by the governor and approved by the Senate. And there's 12. There's 4 of each category. And if there is some kind of complaint or issue with a judge, what they'll do is they'll pick one person from each category to sit on a panel, so 3 people on a panel, and they'll decide. Right now, the judges are the only ones that give themselves oversight. Okay? The argument against this, judges say that only judges really understand the complexities of being a judge. Okay? The argument for it is sometimes an outsider perspective is good to provide oversight.
Which one is this?
That is Amendment H. Judicial discipline. Creating a panel. There's 4 of each category. And then if there is an issue, then they'll take one of each, three-person panel, and they'll adjudicate.
I find it interesting that this year, as I look through all the judges, it's all like 9-0 or 5-0. They're all saying all these judges are perfect.
Yeah.
And this is coming up at the same time.
Yeah.
Good old Boy Scout.
Yeah.
It's just because they understand.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you leave something blank, does your other answers count?
No. Yes, they do. Yeah, you can leave anything blank. You can fill in. I mean, yeah. Whatever you mark will be counted. Anything you don't mark. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well done.
This is like my hobby. Some people play golf.
It's fun hobby.
So great.
Well
done.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Can I pray for us before we go? We love Jesus, and I just want to emphasize, as important as all this is, like hopefully no matter what happens on Tuesday, we are all going out and advancing the kingdom. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for people who want to be informed, for people who see politics as a way to love their neighbor well. I pray that you would give us wisdom as we fill out our ballot, as we select our leaders. God, I pray that we might have leaders that love the public, that look out for the best interests, especially of the most vulnerable among us, and that we advocate no matter what. And God, I pray that you would help us to go out and bring your kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven, just like you taught us to pray. For us in Christ's name we pray. Amen.